Yes! It's like we just were hanging out like a mere 12 hours ago or something. Not good. It's not a good night to be a sports fan in the Bay. 40-34 for the 49ers. The offense and defense couldn't hang. Brock had a great first half, 14-16, and then he struggled through a couple interceptions to the same guy. 31 in white and blue is not on your team, but he did have 2 interceptions tonight. Kirby Joseph, basically on the same play on in routes to Ricky Pearsall. I'll give it up to Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle. Also, Nick Bosa played well tonight with a couple of sacks. Fred Warner, guys that didn't have to be playing what they were, so give them a ton of credit. But just a lot of struggles. I don't know that I would call it revenge. I put it revenge right there. Lions revenge. It was not Lions revenge. That was just an ugly game and just showed how bad the 49ers are. 6-10 on the season. We'll get into it. But the chat line, people are showing up. We said we would hang out. We are hanging out. By the way, you're not missing anything, and probably the reason you're in here is because the Warriors and Cavs are no good anyway. At the half, the Warriors were at least in shouting distance, but now they're down 66-44, so there's nothing good happening at Chase, nothing good happening at Levi's Stadium, so let's commiserate together. I did have cocktails during the game. Very nice, and I would suggest it. I don't go to this often, but I did the bourbon style rather than the, what do you call it, with the ginger beer and all that kind of stuff. So you normally do that with vodka, but I did that in the gold cups with a couple of bourbons tonight. It was very, very nice. As Seinfeld would say, very refreshing. Very nice. But 66-46, so they're obviously coming back. But I see right away from G. Martinez, Purdy, WTF. And I would say the same thing. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but he was so good in the first half and so bad in the second half. Both of those throws were terrible. One was an overthrow, and one, Kirby Joseph, just read Brock's eyes and just cut in front of Pearsall and made the play. So that, Brock he got outplayed. The offense stumbled. I give, George Kittle, like I said, just deserves a ton of credit. He's over 1,000 yards. Ricky Pearsall showed that, hey, maybe next year, and I've been saying this the whole time, that they don't need Deebo Samuel, who again disappeared tonight. I'll give you the stats. In fact, let's just throw them up on there and then give me your thoughts. I want to get to the chat line, but terrible. Terrible defensive performance. And I know guys are out, but not as many defensively are out. Bosa played. Hafunga played. Obviously, Greenlaw didn't play, but, that's just a ridiculous defensive effort. And offensively, they couldn't hang. They hung for a little bit, but then the turnovers absolutely killed them. Couldn't come back. Defense couldn't make a stop. That's pretty much all year long when the Lions got that second interception. If the defense makes a stop, then maybe they have an opportunity to win that game, but they do not. So that's what happened, 40-34. You see the box right there. Brock Purdy, good numbers, 27-35, 377, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but those 2 interceptions are killers. And it shows you what rating is ridiculous. 14 of 16 in the first half was Brock. So let's do a little math. 13 of, 19 in the second half. He just wasn't very good. Josh Dobbs came in at the end. I like Isaac Guerrero, but again, I've said this for weeks with the 49ers. You don't even have to look at the score. If they throw it 40 times and run it 18, which has basically been the last few weeks, a 40-18 pass-to-run ratio, they're going to lose. You look at the Lions, 34-33. The teams are getting over 30, and then they just dominate. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a blown coverage. Laporta on a big third down was a blown coverage. I get it that, some guys are missing, but you know what? Their starting secondary for next year was out there. Hopefully you can get Hafunga back, but Hafunga was out there. Mustafa was out there. That was it. Green was out there. That's going to be your starting secondary. Fred Warner was there. Bosa was there. Leonard Floyd was there. They had enough defensive guys out there, and they give up 40 points. So I said this morning. Robert Saleh needs to come back. Adios to the special teams coordinator. Adios to the defensive coordinator, Nick Sorensen. There's no reason to bring him back. Get working on a contract with Robert Saleh now. You just gave up 40 to the Lions. They're good. Don't get me wrong. They're good. But you had most of your defensive guys out there. Maybe they didn't want to effort because there was an expectation of the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be. But you just gave up 40 to the Lions with the majority of your defensive guys out there. Now, offensively, you didn't have your guys, but good to see Ricky Pearsall. In fact, let me throw that up there again. Ricky Pearsall was great. a career high 141 on 8 receptions, 2 interceptions, though balls right in front of him on the same play. George Kittle is a man. 8 for 112. He was awesome tonight. Jennings, 7 for 67. Garendo, where's our good friend Deebo Samuel? Oh, there he is near the bottom. 1 catch, 5 yards. Awesome. That was awesome. For everybody that keeps telling me he's going to come back, he is not coming back. I'm just telling you that right now. But so the good, Pearsall, Kittle, guys playing defensively, 2 sacks for Nick Bosa, but overall, majority of your defense is out there and you get him at 40, and you're going to tell me that Nick Sorensen's doing a good job. You're going to say to my face, Kyle Shanahan, that Nick Sorensen's doing a good job and he's learning. No, he's not. He's as bad as ever. By the way, Pine Needle is the man. Can we talk bacon? It is National Bacon Day, so there are better things to talk about. Jimmy K says Ricky looks promising, no doubt. I would take that. I would take that as the big positive, and of course, George Kittle is George Kittle. It can't be easy. As you can clearly see, I'm not a professional athlete. As I'm looking at pizza on the TV during the Warriors game. But I'm not a professional athlete, but it's got to be very difficult to go balls out when you think, you know what, we're going to the Super Bowl. That's what you're playing for, and George Kittle's playing the way he's playing, as hard as he's playing. Ricky Pearsall's got something to prove, so I get it. But Fred Warner's out there busting his ass, and Nick Bosa's out there busting his ass, getting a couple of sacks and flying all over the place when he doesn't have to be. So I give those guys a ton of credit. I know they're getting paid a lot of money, but it can't be easy when your expectation level is that high. But I said this right after the interception, and I wrote this down, and I've told you this a million times. So I wrote this down after the second Kirby Joseph interception, and I say, can the defense stop anybody? Can the defense stop anybody? Because you're down a score at that point. If you get a stop somehow, you're still in the game. And they couldn't. They couldn't get a stop. In every single game, I would sit up in the booth, in the media booth, and I would turn to either Larry Krueger or whomever was up there, John Dickinson, or maybe I'd just say it to myself, and people would look at me like, you're a weirdo. But I'd just say, can the defense get a stop? And it almost seemed like every time I said that to myself, they never did, and the same thing happened tonight. So Nick Sorensen's got to go. You can't give up 40. You can't make it so easy on the Lions, as somebody just pointed out, that they didn't even punt tonight. So anyway, give me your thoughts. Brock was great in the first half, bad in the second half. I don't know what they're going to do. You got guys like Sam Darnold. He's not going anywhere. Minnesota's going to sign him. I don't know what direction you go with the quarterback, but there's been so many guys that have been rehabbed. You know, Jared Goff was basically left for dead. He was a throw-in the Matthew Stafford thing, and they didn't think they were going to get anything out of him. He's been rehabbed. Baker's been rehabbed. Darnold's been rehabbed. I mean, Kyle is the great quarterback whisperer, is he not? Can he find a guy to rehab, or are they going to pay Brock Purdy that money? Brock Purdy great in the first half. Second half, I don't know what he was looking at. I don't know what he was looking at on both those interceptions. I'm sure in the postgame he'll say something. We'll talk about it tomorrow in the morning at 8 a.m. when you join me again. But both those interceptions, one's an overthrow to Kirby Joseph, and the second one, he's staring at Pearsall. It's the exact same route. Go back and watch it. It's the same route that Joseph intercepted the first time. He just saw Brock Purdy's eyes staring at Ricky Pearsall the whole time because, you know, Debo can't get open. And so he's either got to throw to Kittle or Pearsall or Jennings, and Pearsall's going over the middle with the same exact route, and he just jumps the route and gives him no chance to win the football game. So, look, I get it, because we can have some fun and play Tankathon, and I have Tankathon, and I'll get it to you in a little bit. But it's frustrating. You know, you want to get, you know, I understand you want them to get good draft position, and they need to be in the top 10, but it was horrendous down the stretch. Second half, they just weren't very good. So anyway, give me your thoughts on everything, whether it's Brock Purdy. What did I put up on the screen? 40-34. Brock first and second. Jake Moody. I take no joy in saying that Jake Moody's got to go. I was, from the second he was drafted, you know this, when they announced the draft pick, I went crazy. I know a 58 you're not going to make, but the Lions kicker, Jake Bates, made it 57. It's your home field. Some people on social media who cover the Niners were like, his first miss at home. And Kyle's going to make an excuse in the postgame that says, oh, you know, before the injury was great and after he's not. And I know it's mental, and they'll probably bring him back next year because of where he's picked. But he's just not reliable. I think he's 29th now in field goal percentage this year. He had an injury. I get it. Maybe he'll come back and mentally be better, but he missed a 51, which is a makeable field goal. A 58, I know that's a difficult kick. There's no question. That's not money in the bank. But it wasn't even close. And like I said, the guy from the Lions, Jake Bates, made a 57-yarder. So it's brutal. He'll probably be back, unfortunately, Greg. I hope he's not, but that's why you don't draft a guy in the third round. A lot of times these guys get drafted highly, and then they make it on their second team after they kind of settle down. It's tough being a rookie kicker in the NFL. It just is. And it's why you don't take him. I mean, Jake Bates, they got off of a UFL or USFL or whatever the hell roster they got him from, the Lions. The best kicker in the league, the kid in Dallas, they found him out of nowhere. You know, I mean, that's just how it goes. You don't usually take these guys, and it's just a brutal spot that they took him in the third round. They had other needs that they needed to do it. Update on the Warriors, 80-54 with 3 minutes left in the third. You were missing absolutely nothing. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Let's see, what else do we have? By the way, first and foremost, thank you for joining me, because we said we would get together. We know it's a disappointing loss. We know that the Warriors are getting blown out, but you still showed up. So I appreciate you all very greatly for sharing in my pain. I'm just pissed off, you know. I guess it's the whole season just culminating and not getting in the playoffs and sitting here at 6-10. And the Lions have a lot of injuries too, especially defensively. And while they didn't play great defensively, they played well enough. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, you know what? Brock played so well in the first half. And then to have Brock play so poorly in the second half, I don't know what the organization is going to do. And you could see the frustration. They showed John Lynch in the box a few times. John Lynch was pissed. He's frustrated. You know, it wasn't supposed to be like this. And I know they're a top-heavy team making a lot of money, and there's a lot of guys out, especially offensively. And the offensive line, by the way, we got to mention the offensive line. I don't know who half the hell those guys were. They were decent enough. You know, they didn't run the ball well or anything like that, but they had a left tackle that you never heard of. Jake Brendel just hasn't had a good year. The left guard, whatever. McKivitz was at right tackle. I mean, you know, Pooney's the only decent player out there. It's just a bad team. It's a bad offensive line, and they didn't get Purdy killed, so I'll at least give him that. I didn't want Purdy to play tonight. I'm like, you don't play him in the preseason with that kind of a line. In the preseason, be like, well, we're not playing our starters. We had a crap offensive line. Can't play Brock Purdy. Well, tonight they played Brock Purdy behind that. Did they want him to get killed? Maybe we wouldn't pay him if he gets hurt. Just kidding. Enrique, good to see you. Salute, my friend. What was everybody drinking tonight, by the way? Like I said, I was drinking the Moscow Mule, but going the bourbon side, so I think they call that a Kentucky Mule. Now that I think about it, and I even had the gold cup and everything. I should have brought it in here. Keeps it nice and chilly. Had a couple of those, and I thought, I'm going to be coming on the air, so I don't want to drink like 5 and just be like, just had a couple. A little pasta tonight, a little red sauce, very nice. Let's see. We lost by 6 points. Moody missed 2 field goals and an extra point, which cost us 7 points. Great point, Frankie. You know, like I said, I don't want to rip a guy for missing a 58, but he wasn't even close. And I keep bringing this up. The other guy made a 57, so it's your home field. You should be able to make that. Mark is saying Purdy just fell apart as he has all year in the second half. It's concerning. I mean, it's just they're going to have to pay the guy because good gets paid great when you're a quarterback because there's not enough around. We've talked about it a million times. But that's what brings on downfalls of organizations is that you've got all this talent, and then you got to start paying the quarterback, and you pay the good quarterback great money, and it costs you a bunch of players. We've said this a million times, but Ward didn't play again tonight. I don't think Ward's ever going to play as a 49er. I don't think Hargrave's going to play again as a 49er. It's absolutely whether – I know you want to keep him, and so do I, but from a logical standpoint, Dre Greenlaw played one half of a game this year, and his Achilles started acting up again. Does that equal a big contract in the offseason? Now, maybe what that equals is no other team's going to go after him either, so maybe it's to the benefit of the 49ers. And Dre Greenlaw signs a team-friendly one-year deal, prove-it deal to the 49ers, and then the rest of the league and the 49ers can determine what he is. I mean, at this point, I should say, that's what Dre Greenlaw is going to get, a prove-it one-year deal, and hopefully it's from the 49ers, but they can't give him a big deal. So if Dre Greenlaw, who I saw, I can't remember, maybe it was Krug, somebody like that, or Tracy Sandler, or somebody asked Dre Greenlaw what he wanted for Christmas, and he goes, money. Well, you've played half of a game this year. I love Dre Greenlaw. He's the energy of the defense, him and Hufanga, but I can't give him much money. He's going to have to get a one-year prove-it deal, and if he thinks he's going to get more than that, then he's going to be gone. Mentioning Hufanga, he wants the deal that McKinney, the safety of the Packers, got, Xavier McKinney, like $70 million. Am I giving Hufanga $70 million the same year I got to pay Brock? I mean, there's a lot of issues here, and they all stem from Brock Purdy getting paid, and I know he's not going to get a ton of money in the first year, but it's going to escalate. So they've got a plan for all of that. So can you give long-term deals to Hufanga? Can you give a decent deal to Greenlaw? they're going to lose guys because of Purdy, and Purdy's okay. Purdy's good. He was really good in the first half, but Purdy's good. But the problem becomes, and you know this, in close games, I have no trust of Purdy. I have no trust of his defense, but I don't trust Purdy. He hasn't done it. You get the ball in some guys' hands, and we know this, Montana, Steve Young, guys like that, Jeff Garcia even. Certain guys, I'm not even going to bring up the greats like Brady and so forth, but it was like when they got the ball with 2 minutes, Patrick Mahomes is this guy, sorry to bring it up, but 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, they're down by a score or less, they're going down the field, man. I knew it in the Super Bowl, sitting at the Super Bowl going, damn, they kicked a field goal. Mahomes is going to go win this game, isn't he? Every one of us said that to each other in the radio booth. We looked at each other and went, damn, they got a field goal. Mahomes is going to go score a touchdown. You just know with certain guys that's what they're going to do. With Kyle and Brock Purdy, when they're behind, they don't do it. The defense didn't get him a stop, but even if they had, did you think Brock Purdy was going to go down the field? That's who you give $50 million to, that guy who's going to do that. Brock never does that. He doesn't. And his second half tonight had to be really disappointing to 49ers fans and executives, and John Lynch is sitting up there going, damn, we got to pay this guy, and I got to lose, Ward, and I got to lose Hargrave, and I got to lose Debo, and I got to lose those guys. And I know Debo's not having a good season, but I'm going to lose those guys because I got to pay a good, not great quarterback $50 to $60 million per year because that's the going rate. He's not going to get 40. He's probably going to get at least 50. That's what Tua got. That's what Trevor Lawrence got. Even these quarterbacks who aren't very good, that's the money they're getting. He's not going to get less than 50, and it's going to cost you players. And we saw it again tonight. It's frustrating, man. Christopher, good to see you. Do you think they bring in a second kicker for the last week or let the Moody train ride out? I would love that they would do that, and that's a hell of a good question. The reason I don't think they're going to is because kickers, it's so mental with them. So you bring in another guy, and at a lot of positions, I believe this. I don't know why it's like this. I didn't make the rules, but these are the rules. Quarterbacks, if you take them out, everyone freaks out, and it causes a big problem. Same thing with kickers. They should be able to bring in a kicker, just like at any other position. Any other position on the field, you can have competition. You can have two running backs, receivers. If a tackle's not getting it done on the offensive line, you can take him out, put him in. It's no big deal. Took him out for a series, brought him in. A corner gets burned. Hey, sit on the bench for a minute. They can put him back in. They can do it in all sports, in all positions, except for two. Quarterback and kicker. Because mentally it's like, oh, you just pulled your quarterback. He's never going to be the same. And same thing with a kicker. Like, oh, you can't mess with the kicker. Kickers are just weird. They are. I know them. They're weird guys. So if you bring in competition for Jake Moody, all of a sudden the fragile mental state that he's already in is like, oh, my God, which I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Like, tell Jake Moody, look, I know you were a third-round pick, sandwich pick, I don't care. You were a third-round pick. You cost us a third-round pick. What was he, pick 101 or something like that? We're bringing in competition. We can't have this. This is unacceptable. But they're not going to do it because mentally they want to get him through this last game, and then they want to get him an offseason, and they think he's going to be fine because if he's a free agent or a seventh-round pick, he's already gone. But they're saying to themselves, man, pick this guy in the third round. We gotta try to nurse this guy back to health. I don't like it. I don't like a third round pick. I've told you that many times, but here we go. Let's see. Long Snapper. What are you saying there, Wilson? Long Snapper 2112, which was a great Rush album. Daniel, thanks for joining. The Niners are not going to make the same mistake Dallas did. If Purdy wants 3 years, $120 million, I'm okay with that. He's probably going to get 6 or 7, and your point is well taken, which is why is Dallas 7-9, which, by the way, is better than the Niners? Because they paid CeeDee Lamb a bunch of money, and they paid Dak a bunch of money, and then Jerry Jones says, I don't have any more because I got to pay, my best defensive player. They've still got a bunch of guys to pay. Some guy named Parsons, he's pretty good. They got to pay him. So what have the Niners done? They paid Brandon Ayuk, which they shouldn't have done, at $30 million. That's going to cost them Debo and all the other guys I just said. So Ayuk's going to get his money. And Purdy's going to get his money, and then what happens? Well, this team is already top-heavy. I already told you it's going to cost them guys, but there's guys who are coming up for contracts, and it's going to be a problem. I can't tell you the immense amount of respect that I have for George Kittle. I know that in your mind, you're thinking, well, shouldn't guys play hard all the time? And they should. But, I mean, Kittle never took the pedal off the metal this year. He's just like, everybody else is getting hurt. Yeah, we suck. I don't care. He was great in every game. This is the best I remember Kittle. He has cemented himself as a Hall of Fame tight end. He could retire after this season. He was awesome this year. I mean, just awesome. Is Brock hurt? Hi, Daniel. Not that I know of. I don't think Brock is hurt. I think he just made bad decisions. This was very typical to me of the Brock season. His superpower is making great decisions. On one of the throws, it was a bad throw. Again, it in cut to Ricky Pearsall that Joseph was like, are you serious? And then on the second one, it looked to me, and I'll go back and look at it, but it looked like the exact same route, and he stared it down, and Joseph is like, are you serious? And he just cut in front of it. I mean, it was one of the easiest interceptions, and the guy leads the league in interceptions with 9, but he plays center field for the Lions. I mean, he's in a position to do that when you make bad throws. So the first one I think is a bad throw. The second one's just a bad decision. Predetermined decision. I see Brock as he has all season long just trying to do too many things. Early in his career, Brock just doesn't make the bad throw, and the second one, bad decision. He just doesn't do that. It's very concerning. Great first half, bad second half. I'm talking a ton about Brock, but, it's huge. Pine Needle says Purdy's a top 10 quarterback in every category. Troy Aikman went through it, and he pointed out how incredible Brock is, blah, blah, blah. I trust what Troy says. I trust what Troy says, too. He's not dynamic, but he's not dumb. He's smart. The problem with Brock is, and we can go back and look at this, we talked about it a few days ago, is that Brock's first 20 and second 20. So Brock's first 20 was historic. I mean, in the way that in his quarterback rating, in his completion percentage, in his touchdowns versus interceptions, and his wins versus losses, all that kind of stuff. And I think in his first 20, he was 17-3, and in his last 20, he's 10-10. And the touchdowns, interceptions, quarterback rating, all those things are completely different. What that means is that while Brock was great the first 20, the league hadn't caught up with him yet. And now they know what Brock doesn't do as well. They take an entire offseason. This is how it works. So a quarterback comes onto the scene. He's absolutely great. This is going to happen to Jaden Daniels in the offseason. And then the other teams in the division take the tape and they tear it down in the offseason. They say, this is what he doesn't do well. This is how we're going to defend him. And then he's got to make an adjustment, and everybody plays that adjustment game, and then you're kind of who you are. Well, Brock Purdy now has played, 42, 43 games? He was great. They adjusted. He adjusted. They adjusted, and now Brock Purdy is what he is, which is he's solid. I'm not saying Brock's not good. He's a top 15 quarterback in this league. He might be top 10 on his best day. Now, does that lead you to a championship? The history of the league says you got to have a Patrick Mahomes type of quarterback or a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. There are exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, you got to have a great quarterback. And over his last 20-plus games, Brock has not been great, but his contract is up after the next year. He can negotiate a new deal. He's not going to play next year without a new deal. And the way that it's going, and he can, as you said, as Aikman said, he can comp his numbers against the guys who got that money. So against Tua, against Trevor Lawrence, against those kind of guys, Joe Burrow, all those guys got $50+ million. Now Burrow is better and all those, different things. But when it gets to Tua and when it gets to Trevor Lawrence and when it gets to Jordan Love, those guys all got paid this past offseason. And Brock Purdy has numbers that are comparable or better than what those guys are. In fact, the highest paid guy is Dak Prescott. He got the deal last year for $65 a year, AAV, and Brock's got better numbers than him. He did last year. Obviously, Dak Prescott got hurt this year, but they were like 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 in every category, every statistical category last year. But I think the league is caught up to Purdy. He hasn't adjusted. There's a reason why he was drafted where he was drafted, because he has physical limitations, and his greatest superpower is, say it with me, his mind, how he thinks, how he processes. And because of the injuries this year, and this is where I don't think it's completely fair to rip the hell out of Brock Purdy, is that when he gets all of his people around him, I don't think he feels like he has to do as much. What he feels like to me is that because of all these injuries, Brock Purdy feels like I've got to do everything. I got to force balls in there. I got to keep the offense going. He felt the pressure from Detroit because he knew his defense wasn't going to be able to hold, and Brock's trying to do too much, and Brock can't. Brock is a true point guard. Get the ball to other players, and you'll be fine, and he's really good at that. But he took too many risks. We know the one down the field against the Rams into double coverage against JJ, bracketed coverage. He even said after the game that he didn't even see that throw. So those are the kind of things that Brock is trying to do, and it's costing them. Like tonight, that throw to Ricky Pearsall, especially the second one, the first one he missed. Quarterbacks are going to do that. That's not really his superpower. But the second one is you see Joseph sitting right there. It's the same one that he just intercepted a quarter ago, and you're going right back to the same route to the same receiver, and you're staring it down, and he's looking right at you. That's not the Brock Purdy that we saw at the beginning and got all excited about. He's making poor decisions. And when your superpower is not physical but mental, you can't make mental mistakes because that's what makes you great. And he's made so many mental mistakes this year, and I do attribute it to he's trying to do too much. He doesn't have as many weapons. He feels like he has to do more. And when players do that in any sport, it screws everything up. And you can tell him time and time again, and Kyle has, dude, stay in your lane, do what you do. But that's not how he is. He's a competitive guy. I appreciate that, but that's just not who he is. If he stays in his lane, plays the game the right way, makes the decisions, throws the ball away. Brock wasn't throwing interceptions when he was great. Remember last year when they went into the 3-game losing streak? Minnesota, Cleveland, what was the third one? He went into the 3-game losing streak. It was all about his interceptions. And go back in the wins and losses. In fact, I'll do it in a second. You go back in the wins and losses in Brock's career, it's about touchdown to interception ratio. When Brock throws very few interceptions, they win. Let me look this up real quick. Because I was watching the Warriors game on my iPad, but I have no need to do that anymore. What are they down, about 50 by now? Good to see you, Doors fan 91. Kyle doesn't trust any of his running backs outside of CMC and maybe Mitchell and Mason. He does not trust Mitchell. He does kind of trust Mason. The only guy he's absolutely truly in love with is CMC. I like Garendo. It's just next year he'll probably get buried. He's a wide receiver. You saw that catch he made over the left sideline. What was that, for about 40 yards? Can we get Ray Wershing back? Hell, I don't know. I would settle for like David Akers or Phil Dawson or no, please no Derek Carr. Please no. People are saying trade Brock for Carr. No. No. Where did that thread start? We have to stop that right now. Please no. More bacon pictures. I absolutely love it. Jordan Love would look great in a 49ers uniform. Yeah, no doubt. Do you think Brock would fetch a first round or likely second and a third? I think Brock, let me push this up just because I've been saying this for a little while. By the way, if you're just joining, thank you so much. Niners lose 40-34. We're doing a little post-game show, post-mortem, so that you can get your negative feelings out and be a productive member of society tomorrow. Here's Tankathon, which is the positive side of things. Look at that. The 49ers are 11. I don't think they can move up because even if they go 6-11, New Orleans has the easier schedule. So if New Orleans it goes 5-12, or even if they win at 6-11 and both teams are 6-11, they have the worst of the schedule percentage. So they would still pick 10 ahead of the 49ers. So I think they're stuck there. And they could go backwards, obviously, but I don't think they can go up from 11. But what I'm saying is New England at 1 is going to trade that. Now we're talking, I can't believe we're talking a draft order before week 18, but we are. So New England has slid into that spot. It looks like they're going to bench Drake May and try to get that number 1 pick, and then they can trade it because they don't need a quarterback. Tennessee at 2 needs a quarterback. So I think 1, 2 still go quarterbacks, Ward and Sanders, or Sanders and Ward. Cleveland could use a quarterback. The Giants obviously could use a quarterback. They could move into that 1 spot. Jacksonville's got a quarterback. Carolina's got a quarterback. Jets could go 7 to 1 or 2. Vegas, the Raiders obviously blew it by winning 2 straight. They could move up to 1 or 2 and try to get a quarterback. So there's that situation. My point in saying all this quarterback stuff is they're not going to do it. I've said this before. Sam Darnold's been just way too good in Minnesota. If it wasn't for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson this year, I think Sam Darnold's probably going to be in the top 5 as far as MVP is concerned. Who knew when he was a 49ers backup? But he's thrown 35 touchdowns. They're 13-2, 14-2, whatever the hell they are. So obviously a great record. But teams Vegas, the Jets, the Giants, Cleveland, Tennessee all need quarterbacks. They're not going to trade, like Tennessee's not going to trade the second overall pick for Brock Purdy. But let's go back to, New Orleans at 10 might trade for a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Derek Carr is there and a couple of backups. Jake Haener is there. He's not very good. Spencer Rattler's there. He's not very good. The Raiders need a quarterback. Would they trade 8 for Purdy? Probably not. Would the Jets trade 7 for Purdy? That's a jackass organization. Maybe they would. Purdy's good. Purdy's solid. If you're looking at the Jet, Aaron Rodgers is gone. He's been an absolute disaster with the Jets. So if you're the Jets at 7 and you can't get one of those quarterbacks, you can't move up to 1 or 2 and get one of those quarterbacks. New England's going to put that for sale at 1. Tennessee, they're going to get a quarterback at 2, so they're going to stay. So let's say you're the Jets and you try to get up and you can't, and you're sitting there at 7. Would Brock Purdy go for number 7? Probably not, the way that he's played. But if you're the Jets, who's their backup quarterback? I don't even know. I know that Zach Wilson's gone. Who's their backup? I have no clue. They don't have anybody. Who's Vegas's quarterback? Gardner Minshew's not going to be back. They're in a terrible situation. Darnold's not leaving Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy could be a guy that I think he was taken 9th by Minnesota last year, so Jets or Vegas could take him. But, they're in a really bad situation. So, yeah, I think somebody would trade for Brock Purdy, but then the Niners would have to get a quarterback. Who would their quarterback be? It's not going to be Sam Darnold. If Darnold was available, Kyle would be on the phone right now. But it doesn't matter that J.J. McCarthy was taken 9th. Minnesota is not moving off Sam Darnold. They're going to franchise him. They're going to pay him, whatever the case may be. So, anyway, that's the only reason I brought up Tankathon, because I wanted to show you what that looked like. Somebody would trade for him, but then you got to find a quarterback. Who's that going to be? Let's see. What else? Hi, Frankie. Good to see you. Bring in Aaron Rodgers. Oh, my God. The Jets are going to release him. He always wanted to be a 49er. Tyrod Taylor is the Jets backup. Thank you, Pine Needle. Much appreciated. Oh, there's Cousins. HB bringing up Cousins. There it is. Cousins has been terrible this year. Absolutely, positively terrible. Now, look, he's coming back from an Achilles. Second year off an Achilles, Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy, who's young. I think Cousins will be going into his age 37 season. I realize that Kyle has always had an infatuation with Kirk Cousins ever since they were together with the then Redskins. But I don't see it. At certain times, like let's say you wanted to be with your whole life, like you had that high school crush on a girl and, she gets divorced and you find her on Facebook and all this seems great. It's not great. So it's too late. It's too late for Cousins and Kyle to my point. Here's the thing too, and I know this for a fact. Kyle loves Brock Purdy. Just does. Loves him as a person, loves his work ethic. So, yeah, look, I'll listen to the postgame. We're going to talk about this more at 8 a.m. live tomorrow on the channel, but it's not a democracy. It's not about me and you and sitting in the chat and sitting right here and saying, do we vote for Brock Purdy or not? Do we vote for Kirk Cousins? Do we vote to bring back Sam Darnold, which I'm sure they would love to do because they loved Sam Darnold, especially his tools, his arm, all that stuff. It was his head that they weren't sure about, which is ironic because it's supposed to be Brock's head and you worry about the physical side. With Darnold, he had the physical side, not sure if he could process it. It looks like he can process it. Now, when you have Justin Jefferson, that makes things easier. And Hawkinson and Addison and, a really good offensive line. But, that's what they said about Brock, too. And we sat here in the Bear and we had to defend it. That's the way it goes. If you have the weapons, you can take advantage of it. There's a lot of guys that have the weapons and the offensive line and everything, and they don't take advantage of it. So, there you go. The Cousins talk is over. I agree, Kyle. That's not happening. Victor says, fuck Cousins. And I don't disagree with that. Kirk Cousins is going to be going into his age 37 season, and he looked horrendous this year. Michael Penix played great last night against Washington. They should have won that game. The coach blew it for him, and Penix played well, and I don't know that they're in that game if it's Kirk Cousins. So, Pine Needle says, I love Brock, too. That Arizona State quarterback, that's Sam Levitt. He's only a sophomore. I don't even know they can keep him. I think they think the portal is shut down, though, right? Yeah, nobody likes Cousins. Everybody's freaking out. Yeah, Brian B., I agree with you. Rodgers, not only has Rodgers been awful, and if you just watch the game, don't even look at the stats for Aaron Rodgers. He can't move anymore, and that was a big part of his game is moving and everything. He can't move, can't run, not mobile, not accurate. And then on top of it, I don't like to use the word cancer. My dad died of cancer, so that's just not a thing that I do. But he's just an asshole. I mean, he's an ass. I'm sure that everybody in the locker room hates him. Garrett Wilson, who was a great receiver that the Jets had his first couple of years, there's reports out of New York that say that if Rodgers is the quarterback next year, he wants out. I mean, he's just been awful. I mean, it's just been a terrible relationship. And, it's the stuff he does off the field, and it's the stuff he says. And the Niners don't want anything to do with that. His ego is gigantic. I don't see him and Kyle coexisting. There's just no way. I know he's from Northern California, but I think Aaron Rodgers showed he's got nothing left. Somebody might pick him up. If he wants to play next year, I doubt he does, just because he's had such a horrendous year. And if you have a horrendous year in New York, it's just they're all over you. And every single day on all the ESPN car wash shows, it's like Rodgers, Dak, Rodgers, LeBron, Rodgers, Dak, LeBron. It's just that they have like 3 hits that they play over and over and over and over. And I'm sure that Aaron Rodgers hates that after being in Green Bay, although maybe he loves it. Maybe he loves being part of the discussion, and he goes on McAfee every week. But there's no way Rodgers would be an option here. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that, because there's no way. He would be a major problem for this team. Not only his play, just who he is. That would not fly with the 49ers. Not in a million years. Not going to happen. So, look, I know that this has been kind of boiled down to a Brock conversation, but the other points, just to bring them up from tonight in the 40-34 loss, the defense can't hold anybody. Nick Sorensen's got to go. I said this morning and ran a promo on it too. You've got to be on the phone to Robert Saleh right now. Robert Saleh's experienced. He's been a head coach. They had a great defense with him. He knows the majority of these players. The defense wasn't the problem in New York with the Jets. It was Aaron Rodgers and all the problems that he was causing. It wasn't Saleh's fault. Would they win one game, I think, under Jeff Ulbrich? Maybe even not that. But it wasn't his fault. Robert Saleh's got a great relationship with Kyle. Now he's got a better relationship with Matt LaFleur, and he is advising the Packers right now. But I don't know that the Packers need a new defensive coordinator. But if they don't, you've got to, I'm not going to say blank check Robert Saleh, but it was a bad idea to have Nick Sorensen, a first-time defensive coordinator, when you're desperate to win a Super Bowl. The defense just got worse and worse. And I know there were injuries. There's no doubt about it. But tonight, who are they missing? Dre Greenlaw? I mean, they had Bosa out there. He played his ass off and had 2 sacks and was in the backfield all night long. They made a mistake. They didn't have interior defensive linemen. I'll give you that. Dre Greenlaw missed basically the entire season. Hufanga was out for a long time. Ward had personal problems. It happens every year in football. You're not going to be completely healthy. They had enough guys defensively to be a much better defensive team. But as I said, right when Brock threw the, was it the first or the second? The second interception. They needed a defensive stop right there to stay in the game. And I wrote it down right at that point. And it was, will they get a stop? In fact, I'll look back because I did all the notes on my phone. And then I'll go back out to the text line. But let's see, when did I write that thing? Can the defense get a stop? That was Purdy's interception. It's 7:34 left, 34-28, 7:34 left. The Lions take over the ball, and I write to myself, can the defense get a stop? And I write after that, no, Lions touchdown, 2:58 left, 40-28. All season long I've been doing that. Can the defense get a stop? I write down on my notes, no. Can the defense get a stop? No. So, look, it's sexier to talk about Brock Purdy all night and whether he deserves the money, which he doesn't, but he's going to get it. But the defense was terrible all year. And you can you can count on one hand how many guys busted their ass all season long despite the injuries. George Kittle was great tonight. Ricky Pearsall showed a lot tonight. Fred Warner didn't have to play. Nick Bosa didn't have to play. Those guys busted their butt. Dominic Puni was great all season long. That's about the list. Other guys were either injured or ineffective. And when basically everybody on the team has a down year outside of Kittle, Kittle and Puni are the only guys that come to mind to me that had a year where you'd say that was an above-average year. Purdy didn't. The offensive line, anybody on the offensive line other than Puni, who's a rookie, so we don't know, but I mean, he was great. Everybody else in the offensive line, below average year. Debo, below average year. Kittle, above average year. Running backs, I mean, you don't know with Garendo, but Mason got hurt. CMC got hurt. Those are below average years. Ayuk got hurt. Debo, below average year. Maybe Jawan Jennings. Okay, put Jawan Jennings in there too. My bad. So Jawan Jennings, Kittle, and Puni offensively. Defensively, Diamador Lenore.
I'll give that one to him. Other than that, anybody else? I mean, that's 5, right? Did I count 5? I don't know. I was told there was no math on this show, but the bottom line is, if you have 5 guys have above average year on a 53-man roster, the team's going to suck. So either guys got hurt, guys had a below average year, whatever the case may be. It was awful. That's what it comes down to. So I know it's sexy to talk about Brock, but it's everybody's fault. Let's be honest. Fans when we lose versus fans when we win. There's no doubt. Let's see. What else do we got? Don't pay. I know there's a lot of don't pay Purdy's, and my question would be to everybody. And a new kicker. Thank you very much. Who's that? Frisco native 415 new kicker. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one in the offseason. I think they're going to try to rehab Moody's head in the offseason because they took him where they took him. I don't love it. He's been terrible. They've been making a lot of excuses for Jake Moody. You know, the injury, the high ankle sprain. Kyle said this week, before the high ankle sprain, after the high ankle sprain. I get it. And the kicks tonight were both over 50 yards, but I'll say this again for those who are just joining us. Jake Bates of the Lions made a 57-yard kick. Jake Moody missed a 51 and a 58. And an extra point, right? How many did they lose by? 6. Okay, just saying. Let's see. Doors Fan 91. What station and what years were you in Detroit, John? I live in Battle Creek, Michigan. By the way, thank you for joining us from Battle Creek, Michigan. My good friend Tom Mazaway and I have been on the texting each other. I was on WXYT, which was 1270. I did the morning show with Mark Spindler, a former Lion. It's now on 97.1 FM, and it's a juggernaut. So I did mornings, and then like Mike Valenti did afternoons, and he did middays, and then afternoons. I'm trying to think, was it Stoney who did afternoons at that point? I think it was Art Regner and Doug Karsh, and I worked with Scott Anderson back there. So anyway, all those guys on 1270. They were on 1270. Now they're on 97.1, and it's a juggernaut now. They have the Lions, they have the Tigers, and they have the Pistons. Like, they have all the teams. And believe me, it was awesome because the downtown, the city itself versus the suburbs, people couldn't be more completely different, and they would clash every day. And I could like sit back while I'd put 2 people on the phone, and they would just fight each other. It was amazing. So anyway, yeah, good times, very good times. Michael says, this is way better than KNBR. Go, John Lund. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Make sure everybody, by the way, subscribe and do all those kind of things and give us the thumbs up. And make sure we are here every weekday at 8 a.m. And then if you miss the 8 a.m. Pacific, which I totally understand, some people got to work or you're going to sleep in, especially during the holidays, it replays all through the day. That's the greatness. You're saying KNBR, hey, you missed that show. But everything is back up. You can replay the show. I put a bunch of shorts out on the weekends. I put out breaking news. Like last weekend, I did a Corbin Burns. On Saturday, on Sunday, I did a thing about Jonathan Kuminga and scoring the 34 over the weekend. So I always got stuff up at John Lund Unleashed Pod, and we have a podcast, Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your favorite podcast. 47 seconds left. Not a good night for Bay Area sports. Cleveland won 13, Golden State 90. Cleveland's the best team in the league. They're 27-4. Now 28-4 now. But 27-4. They're good on both ends of the floor, too. Anyway, there you go. Who else do we have here? Alex, good to see you. Downtown Detroit is actually pretty nice. I'm glad that it's changed because I was there for the Super Bowl, and they basically rat-mazed people around. And I went to lots of games. I went to a lot of Tiger games. Then right across the street is obviously Ford Field. And even when I first got there, the Joe was in the city, was right downtown. So, I mean, I went to games all the time. It's just you didn't walk the streets after that. I mean, they did a hell of a job for the Super Bowl there, but again, there were just places you just did not go, and they painted everything, and they wrapped buildings and everything. And then when the circus left town, it was the same old, same old. I was there when Kwame Kilpatrick was the mayor. And if you're from the Detroit area, you know what that means. Dude was a thief. I mean, just flat out. All right, let's get back to it. What do we got? Coach, good to see you, Coach. Too many teams have passed up the Niners over the past year. The Lance trade, yep, you're 100% right. See, that's the thing, is that a lot of people thought, well, Brock saved the 49ers from the Trey Lance trade or they'd be getting a bunch of grief. Well, now this is when when it pays off. In fact, speaking of Detroit, I was there when they took, so LeBron went 1 in 03, and Darko Milicic went 2 to the Pistons. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony went 3 to the Nuggets, and Bosh went 4 to Toronto, and Dwayne Wade went 5 to Miami. Well, the Pistons won a championship, and nobody really said anything. A couple of years later, they went, God, it'd be really nice to have Carmelo. God, it'd be really nice to have Dwayne Wade. Well, that's what's happening now with the 49ers. Be really nice to have those draft picks back that you used on Trey Lance. And let's be honest, Trey Lance is probably one of the worst 5 draft picks of all time. I'm not kidding. I'm not saying that for a fact. I'm not saying that, ooh, what a take. I'm not a hot take guy. Think about it. He was completely ill-prepared to play the position. Like, he's not going to have a Sam Darnold resurgence. Sam Darnold played at USC, played big-time football, played enough snaps. I mean, not quite enough. Guys come out too early. But, you can see guys that could have a resurgence that were good players and just their mental capabilities got ripped. So Sam Darnold had no confidence leaving New York. And so he had to build that back up. But it wasn't anything physical. He knew how to play the game, all that kind of stuff. Baker Mayfield, same kind of thing. Geno Smith, same kind of thing. But Trey Lance never played. He played at a division school where he was the best athlete on the field, ran around, guys were wide open. He played 7-on-7 football in high school, and he played a total of 29 games. He was 28-1. And then he played 1 game his final year because of the pandemic, and the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan specifically thought it was a good idea. There's nowhere for him to develop. He's got to play. He doesn't see it. Like you would watch training camp with Trey Lance and you'd be like, what in the hell is he doing? Where is he throwing it? He's not seeing, he doesn't have a clue how to play the position. And the 49ers thought, you know what? This is our guy at 3. And the mistake they made really was they said, we'll take any of the 3. So then, of course, Trevor Lawrence went 1 and Zach Wilson went 2, and then they said, okay, we'll take him 3rd. No problem. We'll take any of them. And I think they got scared off Mac Jones, who's not any good anyway. He's terrible, and he's lost his confidence. I could see him getting resurrected, even though he's had a horrible career to this point, but he lost a ton of confidence under Belichick in New England. So maybe. I don't see it from Zach Wilson. I mean, that was a horrible pick. I can go through that one. He had a veteran offensive line at BYU. They played a nobody schedule, and he played backyard football. I watched him all the time, and he just threw it up, and his guys made plays. And then he had a same thing with his pro day. He threw a ball against no rush with guys with brooms in his face and chucked the ball all over, and the Jets went, yeah, he's great, and people got enamored with him. So that's what happens in the quarterback process. It's really hard to evaluate it, but let me go back to what you said. I'm rambling on and on here. Let me go back to what you said. This is now when the Trey Lance trade hurts because you need those 2 first-round picks. Why are you going to have to lose guys? Because you missed out on 2 first-round picks and Trey Lance. So you blew 3 picks. Trey Lance pick, the 2 other first-rounders that you gave up to get the Trey Lance pick. And so that's not cheap labor. That should be guys that are starting, and that's cheap labor, and that saves you money, and that means you don't have to trade or lose these guys. Now, it's been great that Brock Purdy's played at pretty well to this point. He's kind of struggling lately, but he's played pretty well, and that's been a godsend. So that's been great from a quarterback standpoint, but now when you need that money or when you need that cheap labor that's going to be a first-round pick that's going to be a starter, that's 3 guys you don't have, the Trey Lance pick and the 2 picks that you traded, so now you don't have it. Well, now that's starting to hurt. And now go through. I mean, look, for as many at 3rd, 4th, and 5th-round picks as they've come up with, and they've been amazing through that, they've blown a lot too. They've blown it on running backs like Joe Williams. They've blown it on guys like Trey Sermon. They've had a lot of blown picks in there too, especially in the first round. Their best first-rounder is obviously Bosa. He was 2nd overall after Kyler Murray. Other than that, tell me the first-rounder that's still around. Even a guy like Mike McGlinchey, who was solid, he's gone. He didn't make it to a 2nd contract. So that's what they're paying for right now is that they've blown picks high in the draft outside of Nick Bosa, and then the Trey Lance trade cost you 3 picks, and that's killing you right now. So whoever came up with that, you're brilliant. B. Lauren, good to see you. Brock has been bad this year. He played well last year. Brock played great in the first half. I don't know what changed in the second half. People always talk about adjustments at halftime. To be honest with you, there might be a rah-rah speech here and there. There might be a small adjustment here and there. It's not a ton. It's basically a coach saying, pull your head out of your ass. Let's go. You know what the game plan is. We got to play better in the second half, and they do. That's kind of what it is. There's no, like, everybody in the media, I've been doing this for over 25 years. Everybody in the media is like, what did you say at halftime? What adjustments did you make? We just played better. We just executed better. Kyle chewed our ass and said, we got a great game plan in here. Let's start executing. What is this shit? Guys start executing. That's just what happens. I promise you, that's how it works. A million guys have told me that. Hey, John, sorry I'm late tonight. You don't even have to be sorry, Michael. I can always watch your live streams, but I always watch your podcast. My question for you is, should we prioritize O-line, D-line this offseason? Michael, you're a brilliant man. That's all. That's what I would do. I mean, we can sit here because O-line and D-line talk is boring, especially O-line talk. Let's be honest. Who's going to be the right tackle? Ratings go down. I've seen it in radio. But the bottom line is Brock's going to get re-signed unless there's some miracle thing that happens. Brock's going to get re-signed. But the only thing that is really going to save this offense, they can bring everybody back. I don't know that Trent Williams is going to come back. Sorry to break the news to you. He's only back to win a championship, and if he doesn't feel like he can, he's got enough money to live on. Promise me. I know it for a fact. Aaron Banks isn't coming back. He's a free agent. Please, Jake Brendel don't come back. He's one of the worst centers in the league. Pooney is solid at right guard, and I don't know what to make of Colton McKivitz at right tackle. So for a team that wants to punch everybody in the face, and I've said this numerous times, the Rams have watched the 49ers and resurrected their offensive and defensive lines. Nobody talks about Aaron Donald being gone. Why? Because they've drafted about 3 or 4 studs on the defensive line in the first 2 rounds over the last couple of years. The offensive line completely revamped, mostly in free agency, but they got big bruisers up there. Now they can run the ball. They watched the 49ers punch them in the mouth for years and went, we better do that. And the Eagles do it, and the Lions do it. We saw it. They've got a great offensive line. These teams did that for a reason. That's what the top of the conference is doing. Now, Minnesota isn't quite as good, but it's certainly better than the 49ers. So the top teams in the NFC, if you look at what they have in common, they care about the offensive and defensive line. And the 49ers used to, but they forgot. So the offensive line, when you're trying to punch somebody in the face and Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball 30 or 40 times a game to ensure wins, look at tonight. I don't have to put up the box score again. They threw it 40 times and they ran it 18. They did the same thing against the Rams. If the 49ers run it 30+, they win football games. You can't have 40 passes and 18 runs. You don't even have to look at the scoreboard. That's not a 49ers way to win it. They have a recipe to win. They turned it over 2 times. They lost the turnover battle with 2 Brock interceptions, -2. They threw it 40 times and ran it 18 times. And I don't think the Lions ever punted. Don't even have to look at the scoreboard. They're going to lose that game. So a long way to answer your question. The number 1 priority to me is the offensive line. Get back to who you are. And then the number 2 priority, or actually 1B, Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa are okay on the outside. They still need another defensive end. Gross Matos, decent. But their interior defensive line, no way. They tried to get Hargrave in there. Hargrave has been hurt and ineffective. I don't think he's ever going to play another down for the 49ers. They redid his contract to make it easier for him to get released. But Armstead, Buckner, those guys who were the stalwarts forever, obviously didn't work out with Kinlaw. The interior of their defensive line gets no push. They can't stop the run. The interior of the defensive line can't keep the linemen off of Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, whoever else is playing linebacker. Please no more Flanagan fouls. My God. In the Super Bowl and now watching him tonight, he can't cover grass like if he's the only one out there. I mean, it's just brutal. So anyway, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent like that, but the offensive and defensive lines absolutely have to be the first priority for the 49ers. That's what made you what you were. You walked into a stadium and you were going to bludgeon the other team and then went, damn, this is going to hurt. Well, they're going to get physical. They're going to punch us in the face. They don't do that anymore. Nobody's intimidated by them. The Lions won the line of scrimmage on the offensive and defensive side. Now I know the offensive line was completely banged up, so that's not completely fair. But I'm simply saying that especially if Trent Williams retires in this offseason, which is a distinct possibility, you're probably looking at 4 offensive line positions that you have to fix. And you probably can't do that in one offseason, let alone put a couple of defensive tackles in there that can actually help stop the run, which is a major problem and has been for about a season and a half now. Last season, in the beginning of the year, they were good. And then right after that, they couldn't stop anybody. And the offensive line's a major problem. Jacob, good to see you. 2025 draft, they need to take the best player available, the BPA. They need linemen on both sides, and they lack speed. I would agree with all of that. Athleticism is a problem. Age is a problem. Top heavy is a problem. They're going to just, you hit it right in the head in terms of the draft, because they're going to be releasing guys. They're going to be paying Brock money. It's going to be a problem. They're not going to go out and be first day spenders. They can't. They don't have the money to do it. Now the cap is going up. I will say that, but it's going to be tough. Let's see. Hello, Tart. 10 TDs, no punts either team. Yeah, no punts. How would that be, by the way? You're the punter going, are you kidding me? This is beautiful. Killa 03 says Purdy and Moody. Yeah, that's pretty much, that is not good. The 2 interceptions, and Moody did not do that. Brock is staring down receivers. Hi, 49er faithful. He is. The second interception, there's no question. I mean, the safety's standing there going, is he really going to stare down Ricky Pearsall and throw the exact same interception? He threw the exact same interception twice. One time it was just a bad throw. One time it was a bad read. The safety's just sitting there going, he's really going to do this, isn't he? And he just cut right in front of him. It was unbelievable. Let's see. Sully says Kittle has 1 to 2 years left at this pace tops. I hope not, because at times I've thought, you know what, and I've said this many times before, the organization a couple of years ago wasn't so high on George Kittle. He was getting hurt a lot. They were frustrated. George doesn't have an off button, which I love, but some people don't. And I thought George was going to be a cap casualty when what is happening now started to happen. There's no way. They can't let George Kittle go. I mean, it's very rare that a tight end is the MVP of your team, but who's the MVP of the team this year? It's George Kittle. He blocks. He catches. He's unbelievable. He's had one of his best seasons. He's over 1,000 yards. Everybody else got hurt, and George Kittle didn't. Who played harder than George Kittle this year? Nobody. The more injured they got, the more determined he got. You know, you'd see press conferences with George. I don't care. I'm not quitting. I mean, it's unbelievable. And Fred Warner was the same way defensively. It's just he has so many injuries right now, and the defensive line can't keep anything off him that he had a tough year. Let's see. ESPN ran a graphic with 10 TDs and no punts. First time since 1937. Great D tonight. Wow. Sportsfan says, trade Kittle, CMC, trade them all, rebuild. The thing that's tough in the NFL in that regard, and it's not that I don't agree with you. It's just what happens is, especially like CMC, for example, signed an extension last offseason. You got a bunch of dead cap on there, because what you do is you give a guy a bunch of money and then you elongate it over a bunch of years. And the second that you trade or cut that guy, then what happens is it gets accelerated on your cap right away. So, for example, you sign a guy on a $30 million deal over 5 years. So the money goes $6 million a year, right? You give him all this money up front, but then you can elongate the money over a period of time, which is what brings the cap number down. That's what they're going to do with Brock Purdy. You're going to see all this money for Brock Purdy. You're going to see all these big bonuses, and you're like, how the hell can they pay him? And then his first-year cap number is going to be like $15 million, because they give him a bunch of money, but then they, over an amount of years, like 6 or 7 years, they put that money over those years so they can keep the number down. That's the way that it goes. So then when you cut that guy, especially like they just gave CMC money, so they can't, I mean, they could cut him, sure. They're going to eat money on Debo probably next offseason, because we saw tonight, you know, Ricky Pearsall is going to be in the slot. Ayuk's going to come back. We got an update on Ayuk yesterday. Kyle saying it was very positive news. So Ayuk's going to be back. And Ricky Pearsall, as we saw tonight, he's going to be in the slot. And Jawan Jennings is a number 2 receiver. He's good enough. So Jawan Jennings is going to be on one side outside. Ayuk's going to be on the other side. Pearsall is going to be in the middle. I'm not a Jacob Cowing guy. I think he's too small. You know, I don't know what they're going to do there, but they're not going to pay Deebo Samuel, who again disappeared tonight. And we haven't discussed Debo a whole lot, but I can throw the stats back up. He was terrible. That's why Pearsall and Kittle got so many looks, because Debo was never open, because Debo doesn't get open. So Debo had a couple of catches tonight. You're not paying $23, $24 million for Debo Samuel to be a 4th wide receiver, because that's what he is now. What did he catch? I think he caught 2 tonight, right? Is that what he said? There's the box right there. Debo 3 for 16 running the ball. And I got to go all the way down. 1 catch for 5 yards. So 4 touches, 21 yards for Debo, including 1 catch for 5 yards. He's not going to be back. They'll eat some of it. That's what the league does now. They eat more money than ever. They just put salt and pepper on it, cut it up, and they eat it. I mean, look what the Broncos ate with Russell Wilson. They just do. They're not going to compound the problem and pay Debo. The minute that Ayuk got paid the money, Deebo Samuel knew his days were numbered, and Juwan Jennings has had a really solid year. And we just saw from Pearsall, he can play. He can play. It's late in the year, I understand that, but he can play. So he got 8 catches for what, 161? Let me pop that up again. 8 for 141 and a touchdown. Had a 40-yarder, and he had a carry too. So Pearsall can play. He's going to be in the slot. Those are going to be your 2 outside receivers. Deebo is the odd man out. Yeah, Jacob, you're right. He had the only catch for that shovel pass. Sully says the cap keeps going up, so I don't think whatever they pay Purdy is realistically going to hurt them. Drafting, player acquisition, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't trust Kyle. You're right. The cap number keeps going up and up and up. The only problem is that you've got to not only – okay, so next year, even if Purdy's deal, let's just say for the sake of conversation, it hits at $15 or $20 million on the cap. Remember, he's making less than $1 million. So it's going to go up. That's like paying a guy $20 million or $15 million that you don't currently have on the roster. And they just don't have that money. And then what they have to do is what Parag Marathe has to do, who's their capologist, and he's one of the best in the league. He's great at it, at moving this money around, and he's got a chart and who gets what when. At some point in the next 2 to 3 years, that number is going to jump. And so what they've got to do for the sake of conversation is then they've got to figure out, okay, if we're going to re-sign Hufanga, okay, then Hufunga's got to get a lot of money up front because in the 3rd year of Brock's deal, it jumps to $40 million, and we'll give Hufanga a bunch up front, but then when Brock's deal hits, Hufanga's number's got to be lower. Does that make sense? And he's got to do that for 53 guys. And they got to keep that, because that's what you're doing. You're playing a shell game. Okay, this guy's got upfront money. This guy's got money that's going to be on the back end. This guy, and they've got to keep that going every single year because you can't, in the NFL, you can't go over. I mean, it's not like the, NBA, okay, you go over, we fine you, or in baseball, you go over a certain number, then you lose this, or all that kind of stuff. The NFL is a cap. So you've got to be compliant. You got to be cap compliant. You got to figure it out. Now, can they manipulate that? Sure. That's why you see contracts redone all the time. You can manipulate it. There's no question about it. But at some point, the credit card becomes due. And like the 3rd or 4th year of Brock Purdy's deal, the credit card bill is going to come due. And so they've got to think to themselves, who are we signing? How long are we signing? And everything else. And that's going to determine what they can do. They're in a tough spot. I mean, there's no question about it. That's why, like I said, I don't think Hargrave's coming back. I'd be surprised if Hufanga came back. Dre Greenlaw, based on the fact that he played 1 half this year, he's going to have to play ball. It's going to be a 1-year prove-it deal. Deebo Samuel's not going to be back because the problem with Deebo Samuel is if they have to eat the money now, they'll eat the money now because Brock's money is not big this next year, so they can eat it. But in a couple of years, they're going to want to clear that money out. That's just how it works. Everybody's telling me, you're crazy, Deebo, they're going to have to eat a bunch of money. Well, look, they can eat it now because Brock's number is not going to be huge for a couple of years. But in like 2nd, 3rd year of that deal, they're not going to want to do that. And you're not paying – Deebo's the 4th receiver. I mean, by next year, he's not ahead of Ayuk. He's not ahead of Jennings. We saw tonight, Ricky Pearsall was a lot better than Deebo Samuel. He's 4th right now. You're going to pay your 4th wide receiver, and he was returning kicks. You're going to pay a 4th receiver and kick returner $24 million? No. Keep it coming. Love talking it tonight. By the way, 40-34, if you didn't see it. I got team stats if you want to look at that, or would you rather look at Tankathon? These are the team numbers. I don't know if you care anything about these. But 3rd down efficiency for the Lions. Again, this has been a problem all season long. The 49ers never get off the field defensively. 9 of 14. 475 to 439 in yards. My God, nobody played any defense like you said. Yards per play, 6.4 to 7.9. The 49ers averaged 7.9 per play and had 400 yards passing, did not win the game. Like I told you, 40 throws on the night. And here's what it comes down to, 2 turnovers. You see that at the 3rd to the bottom column? 2 Brock Purdy interceptions, killed it. That was the main problem. Time of possession, the Lions had a little bit, about 9 minutes more as well. So there's some numbers on there that tell you everything. But 3rd down efficiency, 9 out of 14. The Lions go for it on 4th down a ton, 2 for 3. They got that big throw to Laporta on one of those. So it's not great. Those team numbers aren't great. There's the box score itself. If you want to take a quick back look at that. But there you go. There's the box. Get those time ones out of there. Jared Goff, you got to admit it, 26 out of 34, 303, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Purdy was great at the half. He was 14 of 16 at the half. Finished 27 of 35, 377 in those 2 killer interceptions. Did throw 3 interceptions as well. And again, as I told you, when you have 40 passes and 18 runs, and you're the 49ers, that's not the formula. Give it up to Ricky Pearsall, who had the 8 for 141. Kittle was great again, 8 for 112. He's over 1,000 yards. Jennings, 7 for 67. Garendo had that nice 40-yarder down the left sideline. He used to be a receiver, so I like him. I think that at one point he's going to be really solid. But Kyle loves himself some CMC, so I don't know that he ever gets that chance. So those are the numbers, 40-34. The Niners lose it. What else do we have out there? Are you feeling? Let me ask you this: are you feeling at least better that we talked this thing out? Because I don't know, I was just pissed off watching the game. I thought this was an opportunity to beat the Lions, and even though it wouldn't have mattered whether the Lions won this, because Sunday Night Football game 272 is going to be for supremacy in the NFC. Either Minnesota gets it or Detroit gets it, so they could have lost tonight and it wouldn't have really mattered. But that's just what happens. But I would have liked to have seen them get it. Our D coordinator has to be fired. Hello, 49ers faithful. I've talked about that. In fact, I have a promo running right now. We talked about it this morning. If you have not contacted Robert Saleh by now and you're Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch or whoever's doing the contacting, then you're not doing your job right. Nick Sorensen's a rookie defensive coordinator, and I played this morning. In fact, you know what? I might still have it. Let me see if I can play this for you. Make it worth your while. I had it this morning. Here you go. I do have it. I talked about this morning in the 8 o'clock show this morning. Kyle has had a ringing endorsement, a fairly decent ringing endorsement for Nick Sorensen this season. Hey, he's in his first year. He's getting better. Yeah, I'm satisfied with it. This is not a ringing endorsement. This is before the game. This is before they gave up 40 points and over 400 yards. Here is Kyle Shanahan on the job that Nick Sorensen has done. This was before the game.
Different than how I've answered that last few weeks. And I think Nick has done a good job as a coach. No one's happy with our results by any means. I think he's been thrown in a number of situations that I think will make him better going forward. I've watched him adjust to a bunch of different situations, kind of be in a couple of situations on a couple games when there wasn't much of an answer and he still had to try to find one. So I think this year was good for him, but and I know he's going to be.
Oh, sorry there. I'm looking at all the the cuts over, and I'm looking at everybody. Mr. Norm McDonald said, didn't we have a shot at Fangio? We did. The Niners did. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's kind of my point here is Philadelphia said in the offseason after they had a disastrous end of their season, lots of things went wrong, kind of like this season for the 49ers, but at least they made the playoffs and then bowed out early. I think it was to Tampa last year. And then Kelsey retired and everything else. But they fired the defensive coordinator. They fired the offensive coordinator. They brought in Kellen Moore for the offense. They brought in Vic Fangio for the defense. And I'm not saying that, that what they did, too, they drafted a couple of nice corners. They did some good things in the draft. Howie Roseman does a great job. Jalen Carter took another step forward. They had a lot of young defenders who have played much better this year. But Vic Fangio came in and pulled it all together. It makes a difference who's running things. So I know that Robert Saleh's in Green Bay and he's helping out his good buddy Matt LaFleur, but they've got to be on the phone to him. Like, Robert, please. And some people hit me up in some chats earlier today after we did the show and said, well, why wouldn't Robert Saleh be looking for a head coaching job? I'm sure he is. But the Jets are paying him a ton of money. He's going to get offset money from the Jets no matter what job he takes, and he's not going to get a head coaching job. He's going to need to cool off for a minute, and he's going to have to – sorry, I'm going to take a picture of something on my screen for the Warriors. But he's going to have to just take a couple of years off. So the 49ers might as well help build up his resume again, play with a great defense. In a couple of years, he could be he could be a head coach again, but he's got to go back to being a coordinator. And Nick Sorensen's a rookie. And to me, and you could tell me, you just heard it, I mean, that was the least of the endorsements, the less enthusiastic endorsement that I've heard, or the least enthusiastic, I should say, endorsement that I've heard Kyle Shanahan give Nick Sorensen this year. The guy's a rookie. You're desperate to win a Super Bowl if you're the 49ers, and I'm not kidding about that. I'm down there all the time. I've been down there most of the season. There's a desperation in the air, and that's not conducive to a rookie defensive coordinator. Sorry, Nick. I'm sure you could be great down the line, not this year, and you just gave up 40 to the Lions. And most of your guys were there. Nick was there. Fred was there. Afunga was there. I know Greenlaw wasn't there, but lots of guys have injuries. The Lions have a ton of injuries. We saw it. Their defense wasn't good tonight. But teams step up. Guys step up. They had the majority of their guys defensively tonight, did the 49ers. and the Lions never punted. And they didn't get the key stop when they needed the key stop, and the Lions went 9 for 14 on third down. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. In this life, you sink yourself, and the numbers are too bad to keep this guy. I mean, he just can't do it. And Robert Saleh sitting out there. I said this morning. One of my sports philosophies is that's fine that you want to fire somebody or you want to cut somebody or you want to bench the quarterback. What's your option? That's my problem. And I said this morning is like Doug Christie's not a better coach than Mike Brown up in Sacramento. Then you don't fire Mike Brown. Like if you've got a better option, then fire the guy. Fine. But you have a better option. His name's Robert Saleh, and that's who the 49ers should have as their defensive coordinator. He was great. They went to a Super Bowl. He got a head coaching job. He's better. Now, maybe he is going to make a decision that he wants to go somewhere else, and he doesn't want to backtrack in his career. But if I'm Robert Saleh, it worked out pretty good the first time, and they still have a lot of talent on this defense. Bosa's still there. Warner's still there. Young secondary. Robert Saleh could pull this thing together. That's one of the first moves they need to make in the offseason because it's going to take a minute. Obviously, free agency, the draft, you got to do all those kind of things and do all your work and look at the finances and all that, and you got to sign Brock, and you got to look at Afunga and Greenlaw and all these kind of things that you got to do. But the first thing they do after the whistle blows into the game next week against the Cardinals, Robert Saleh should be announced the next day. Brian Schnider, the special teams coach, should be fired right after the game. You need a new special teams coordinator. Robert Saleh should be your defensive coordinator, and then you just go from there. And then it's okay, Brock's on the clock and blah, 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 blah. But the first two things, new special teams coordinator, I've never seen a guy be worse, and I can't believe he's still employed by the 49ers. It's not all his fault, I get that. But between Jake Moody and blocked punts and fake punts and kick and punt returns and all the different things, they were terrible. And sorry, you're the special teams coordinator. And it's not always fair. You know how they always show the special teams coordinator after there's a screw-up on special teams? It's not his fault. I get it. But somebody's got to be culpable when they're that bad. So Brian Schneider's got to be gone. Nick Sorensen's got to be gone. Robert Saleh's got to be in. Whoever the new special teams coordinator, fine. I think Kyle Shanahan needs an offensive mind in the building to kind of bounce things off of. They've got to be more aggressive on fourth down. Now, they don't have to be Dan Campbell, but they should be more aggressive given how good of a coordinator and an offensive mind Kyle is. They've got to be a little bit more refreshed on offense, all those kind of things, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things. We have an entire offseason to do it. But first and foremost, the defensive coordinator, the special teams coordinator. And you have a better guy out there in Robert Saleh. So I'm not saying blank check, but we're saying damn close, right? Kilo 03 says, get Saleh, sign Greenlaw, pay Purdy $50 million in that order. Greenlaw's going to be interesting. We've talked about it tonight. Greenlaw's played one half of football this year. They're going to have to go to Dre and say, look, man, we love you. We love you deeply. But you got to do a one-year prove-it deal. I don't think anybody's going to give him a bunch of money. If they are, then more power to them. But I don't think the 49ers are going to do that. It's just not the way they do business. He's going to have to do a one-year deal. Sports fan Kyle might have to cost his 25 season in week 17, getting his quarterback injured, surgically repaired elbow. Yeah. To be honest with you, I was surprised Brock even played. I'm sure Brock wanted to play, but here's what I find funny, that in the preseason, what's the excuse for not playing guys in the preseason? Oh, we can't play, our starters behind that offensive line. We can't play our starting quarterback behind that offensive line. Well, the guy Heck, the left tackle, he was signed this week. Left guard, what is it? Zakel was playing, right? Nick Zakel. He's like the third or fourth string guard. Brendel's been terrible all year, and McKivitz was probably your best offensive lineman tonight. No, that was Pooney. But still, I mean, if that was the offensive line that was starting in a preseason game, Brock would be nowhere near that field. Nowhere near that field. Would he? I don't think so. All right, what else do we have? Hi, Mario. Good to see you. Wanted to show up, finish strong. We can't play from behind. You are right. Lost faith in Purdy, and I'm not saying move on from him, but drafting an additional quarterback cannot be out of the question for the QB room. I agree, Mario. Look, the organization loves him. As I said before, it's not a democracy. We can bitch and moan in this room all we want, and it's fun. It's therapeutic. I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are too. But, oh, yeah, everybody wants hot nuts. I'll pull that up. I always keep hot nuts on the board because I know that we'll need it. There it is. Let me finish the thought here. Look, they're going to sign Purdy. I said a couple of weeks ago and kind of was pounding this drum for, hey, maybe Sam Darnold's going to be 3-100 or 3-110 or something like that. he's probably going to get 40 or 50 a year now. He's probably going to finish top 5 in MVP voting. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am. And he's probably been the best quarterback in the NFC this year. He's got 35 touchdowns. His team's, 14-2. He'd be an MVP in a lot of years, but Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, even Saquon Barkley, I mean, those guys are probably all ahead of him, so maybe he finishes 5th. But Minnesota, just because they drafted J.J. McCarthy 9th this year out of Michigan, well, I'm not convinced of, they're not going away from Sam Darnold, so he's going to get a lot of money. So my thought was, hey, you could maybe trade Brock Purdy to one of these quarterback-needy teams in the top 10 who would be desperate, like the Jets at 7 or something like that, who are not going to get one of the top quarterbacks. I mean, who'd you rather take, Carson Beck or Brock Purdy? It's not even a question. I mean, and I don't think Shedeur Sanders is very good, and I think he's a problem off the field. I think his arrogance and all these kind of things, I think it's an issue. I wouldn't touch him. Cam Ward played the first half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl, got his touchdown record, and sat out the second half on a 42-41 loss to Iowa State. You want that guy on your team? Yeah, I'm good, guys. Just stands on the sidelines for his team and just takes himself out of a game at halftime after he gets his record. That's ridiculous. You want that guy? I mean, that's who the first 2 picks are going to be. And then after that, if you're desperate for a quarterback, who the Jets going to play at quarterback next year? I have no idea. So, I mean, Purdy could probably fetch you a first-round pick. He really could, the way he's played. But that would be under the premise that you could get Sam Darnold back, and that's not happening. Sam Darnold isn't going to make as much as Brock Purdy, but right now, who would you rather have? I mean, Sam Darnold's better than Brock Purdy right now. That's not a hot take. That's just a fact. But back to Mario's point, which is, will they draft a quarterback? Probably, but not somebody that's going to unseat Brock. They like Brock. They really do. I mean, Kyle knows, and Kyle has not been as hot on his praise for Brock Purdy that he's been in the past. And I know behind the scenes, I know he's getting on him about things, and he's got a lot of things to work on. He's got to work on the mental side. And I think next year, to be honest and to be fair to Brock, when all of his weapons come back, and that means Ayuk, and that means CMC, and hopefully that means a better offensive line at better, then Brock Purdy's not going to try to do as much. He's going to go back to his lane, and he's going to get his head back into the game and go, I can't make those mistakes. He's going to look back at film. Even tonight, the throw that he made to Purcell the first time, I didn't even know what he was doing. And the second one, he just stared down the receiver. It was the exact same route, and the safety was like, are you kidding me? We're doing this again? So that was a mental mistake. It was a physical mistake the first time. It was a mental mistake the second time. But they're going to sign him because they don't have another option, and good quarterbacks get paid great money because there's just not enough of them around. But will they bring somebody in? I think so. I mean, they need to have better than Josh Dobbs or Allen back there, Brandon Allen. Those guys aren't acceptable. And usually Kyle has a better option than that. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in like a Daniel Jones. He could be a rehab candidate. And I'm not saying that Daniel Jones would challenge Brock for the starting position. And I'm not saying that he could become the next Sam Darnold, but we're seeing these rehab guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. It's kind of becoming a thing. And if I had to bet on somebody, I wouldn't bet on Zach Wilson. I don't think he's going to do it. If I had to bet on a rehab guy for next year, I'd bet on, Daniel Jones. I mean, he was not great in New York, but neither was about anybody. New York's not easy. And he's got some talent. So I could see him, coming under Kyle, being a second quarterback and maybe, not being Sam Darnold, but being decent. 49er Faithful says, come on, Lund. Krug has endorsed Tanner Mordecai. By the way, I'll be on with Krug tomorrow night. Yeah, he loves himself some Tanner Mordecai. There is nobody who endorses the unknown more than Krug, and I love him for it. I don't think he's going to be anything, but then again, when Brock Purdy was the third quarterback, I didn't think of anything of him either. So, a lot of people like his arm. I don't know. There's more to the position than that. You could trade Brock to the Raiders for their first, take the best player available, and then trade that pick for J.J. McCarthy. I mean, you could if you like J.J. McCarthy. I'm not a huge J.J. McCarthy fan, but who knows? Let's see. Max says Riley Leonard, Notre Dame quarterback. Yeah, there's a lot of guys after the top two. Like, I think Carson Beck is making a huge mistake coming out. I haven't dove deep into the draft, but I love it. I love it. And I'm a dork, and you can call me all that. Riley Leonard's okay. There's a number of guys that kind of are in that same group, that next level of quarterback, and it just depends. Riley Leonard was terrible at the start of the year, but then, he's got athleticism. He was much better down the stretch. He's not bad. You could see that as like a backup. I'd rather get a veteran myself. I would. Rather than just take a chance on a rookie guy, I'd rather get a Daniel Jones and try to rehab the guy. That's kind of what's going on in the league. I'd much rather have a vet. that I could rehab. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after Zach Wilson or Mac Jones. Kyle liked both of those guys coming out the same year that they drafted what's his name? Trey Lance. JJ says, good to see you, JJ. JJ says, pay Purdy 30 to 35 with incentives, $10 million if he gets to the playoffs, so they're $10 million. That's a great concept. It's a lovely concept. It really is. They're not going to do it. 30 to 35 to me and you is like, oh my God, they're going to pay me 30 to 35. The going rate, they're going to look right at Trevor Lawrence and say, Trevor Lawrence ain't better and he's making 55. Tua ain't better. Look at me going, ain't. What am I, country bumpkin over here? Tua isn't better. He's making 52. Like, he's getting at least $50 million. That's the going rate. It's not how good you are, it's when you're up. And right now, the number for a top 10 to 15 quarterback, not even a top 5 quarterback, is about $50 million. Because now the number at the top is Dak 65. His AAV is 65. So if you're making 50, you're not even at the top. Jordan Love got 50 plus. Tua got 50 plus. Lawrence got 50 plus. Goff got 50 plus. I mean, again, you can debate whether these guys are better than Brock, but Brock's deal is up now, and he's going to get 50. I hate to tell you. And look, I'm the same way. I'm looking for somebody. I'd like him to not pay him that kind of money. And it's not going to happen all at once, but it just is what it is, and they're probably going to pay him for it, man. You can thank Uncle Jerry for the QB costs. I agree 100%. Valen says, there were whispers, Kyle, the kid wants the kid from Oregon. Oh, Dylan Gabriel is who you're talking about. He's wild. He's small. Dylan, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's been a great college quarterback. Went from Central Florida to Oklahoma and now to Oregon. Kid is athletic, makes good decisions. I think he's at about 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I could be wrong. I've watched a ton of Oregon just like you have, I'm sure, this year. The college football playoff starts tomorrow night and all through Saturday. Can't wait. But Dylan Gabriel's probably a mid-round guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle went Dylan Gabriel. He's kind of a Brock Purdy-ish guy. Doesn't have the biggest arm, doesn't have tons of tools, but he's underrated athletically, a little bit smaller. In fact, he's smaller than Brock. Brock's got big legs. You know, Brock's big. I was going to say big below the waist, but then I know what you guys would say. But Brock's, you know, he's got some tree trunks going on. Dylan Gabriel's not a big guy, but I could see Kyle liking him. Jesus. Good to see you, Jesus. Jesus M. Horrible defense. I couldn't agree more. Gabriel throws 10 to 12 passes a game. Yeah, he does. Gabriel's definitely undersized, great kid. Yeah, look, he's had a tremendous career no matter where he's gone. He's probably made a lot of good money, too, because of the portal. I mean, he's gone to, 3 colleges? Is he at 3 or 4? I think it was Central Florida, Oklahoma to Oregon, but there might have been one before that even. Jackson Dart, says Drew. We're getting into some draft talk from Ole Miss. That's what I was saying. Like, Jackson Dart's in there, and there's a bunch of different guys. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's not really a top-heavy draft at those top 2, and I don't trust either of those top 2. I'd probably take Ward over Sanders. I don't like Sanders just as a leader of my football team. That's going to be a problem. Mordecai Magic, or people saying Mordecai Magic. Let's see. Yeah, that's a great point, 2-3. How can someone who played in Iowa not play well in the cold? He doesn't. He doesn't play well in the cold. He doesn't play well in the rain. He sure as hell, as we saw in Buffalo, doesn't play well in the snow. I have no idea. HR says Pearsall is a player. I think we saw that tonight. I mean, he's only had a couple of good games, but I forgot Debo was on the field, and here's Ricky Pearsall getting, the one-hander he had on the sidelines where he tipped it to himself and then had the toe swag drag on the second foot, got the first one in and then dragged that second one on the one that he tipped to himself. Pearsall can play, man. I watched him a bit in college. I wasn't sure that he was going to play at this level if he'd be strong enough. But I'll tell you this, he's quick. So, yeah, I think he's going to be in the slot next year. I think the outside guys are going to be Jennings and Ayuk, and I don't see a place for Debo. Could be wrong. I love that people are throwing out college names, by the way. I love the draft. Yeah, there you go. Kyle McCord of Syracuse. Howard, the kid at Ohio State. Talk about those guys all night long. Definitely draft and free agency. Sons of Johnny LeMaster, one of my favorites. I got to get the sweatshirt on. If Brock has another elbow injury, then what? Good question. I think that's what I'm saying is I think a Daniel Jones versus a young guy. Like, I'm not saying, hey, draft one of those guys. Like I said, there's a lot of depth with the quarterbacks this year. Draft one of those quarterbacks, whoever you like. Okay, it could be Dylan Gabriel, but he can't be your backup next year, I don't believe. So you got to do something as far as, I think, a veteran. Daniel Jones would be good. I know that he hasn't had a great year, don't get me wrong, or a great career, but he did get him to the playoffs one year. He does have great athleticism. He does have a good arm. He was picked in the top 10. New York can take it out of you. You can lose your confidence. That's why young quarterbacks get drafted early, because they have these physical skills. And then their confidence goes away. That's what mostly happens to these guys. And then what happens with Sam Darnold? Loses tons of confidence in New York, builds it back up with a guy like Kyle Shanahan, goes to a quarterback-friendly system and great weapons around him in Minnesota, and it works. So he regains his confidence. I mean, that's what happened with Geno Smith. Where was he? New York. Regains his confidence, plays behind Russell Wilson, knows the offense, gets to play. I would love it if guys could sit. Jordan Love sat. I went to Utah State. I watched Jordan Love a ton. He was erratic in college, and I'm like, this dude? You're drafting this dude in the first round? But he got a couple of years to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers says he mentored him. I don't know if that's true. But he got a couple of years to learn the system, to understand the speed of the game. He's pretty good. I'm not saying that all guys do that, but part of the problem in developing quarterbacks, which is probably the worst thing that the NFL does, they do a lot of things right. They don't develop quarterbacks. They can't be around the team enough. So they've got their quarterback coaches. They got 5 different things in their ear trying to teach them all these different things. They're doing all these things, and they can't be around the team, and then they get forced to play too early. They lose their confidence, and they're on to another team, and can you rehab it? But we've seen over the last couple of years, 3 or 4 guys have rehabbed it at a high level. I mean, Baker Mayfield's good. Jared Goff got rehabbed. Sam Darnold got rehabbed. Geno Smith got rehabbed. I mean, the league that's what they're looking for now. They're like, wait a minute. Rather than paying some guy $50 or $60 million, maybe there's a guy we rehab. I think people are going to try with Daniel Jones next. I don't know if it's going to work. Killer. Yeah, I'll talk some bacon. You want to talk some bacon? National Bacon Day. Did I take that down? Did I take the National Bacon thing down? I had that earlier. I don't know where it is. I can't. Oh, there it is. Bacon Day. There it is. True story. Monday, December 30th, National Bacon Day. You had bacon. You had your bacon today? I had some bacon. I just said, you know what? I got off the show. I told you I was going to do this morning. Got this big flat top out in my backyard, and I threw up a bunch of bacon, or not threw it up. I threw it on the grill. Didn't vomit it up. I threw it on the grill, and my wife was like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's National Bacon Day. If I don't have bacon today, it's crazy. So anyway. All right, I'm going to, where is Hot Nuts? I had it. All right, I'm going to give you a little special, and I need to drink some water too. But I don't want to people are still coming in. People are hanging out, so I'm good staying as long as you want to stay. But since we had a horrible day, what ended up being the final? I know Niners 40-34. What was the score of the Warriors game? They got blown out. So we've had a bad day. We don't play Hot Nuts often, because if we do, then it becomes an old bit. But we love Hot Nuts. It's a feel-good song. If you haven't heard it before, when we need to play Hot Nuts, especially on National Bacon Day, it just makes you feel good. I dare you to say that you feel worse. In fact, I know you'll feel better after a minute of Hot Nuts. So here we go. Here's a little Hot Nuts to make you feel better. It'll give my voice a rest, and we can continue to talk about how horrible the 49ers are. And by the way, if you got a Warriors thought, we can do that as well.
Selling nuts, hot nuts. Anybody here wanna buy my nuts? Selling nuts, hot nuts. I've got nuts for sale. 1 for 1 and 10 for 5. My hot nuts really satisfy. Selling nuts, hot nuts. I get them from a stoop down man. I've got nuts that steam in butter. If you try one of them, you'll never try another. Selling nuts, hot nuts. I get them from the stoop down man. Selling nuts, hot nuts. Anybody here wanna buy my nuts? Selling nuts, hot nuts. I've got nuts for sale. They call me the stoop down man, 'cause I eat nuts anytime I can. Selling nuts, hot nuts. I get them from the stoop down man. I like my nuts. Got any?
Okay, did it work or not? Do you feel better? Thank you, JJ. 113.95 and 40.34. Jesus says, are you watching college football tomorrow? Are you kidding me? I've got to do some stuff around the house because, if you sit around and just watch sports all the time, your significant other's like, will you ever contribute around here? So, yeah, I got some stuff to do. We're going to do the show 8 a.m. tomorrow. Be there, 8 a.m. live show right here on the channel, John Lund Unleashed Pod, and the podcast itself as well. Make sure you're subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, and all those kind of things as we're doing a thrown together Lions 49ers postgame in which they lose 40-34. The defense was horrible. Nick Sorensen's got to go. We can talk Brock Purdy. That's what we've been doing this majority of the show, but I knew we would be. But Jesus asked if I'm going to be watching college football. So there's one game tomorrow night. Then the rest of them are Saturday. And I think the last game is Notre Dame-Georgia. Georgia will probably blow them out because Notre Dame always struggles with athletes when they get in bowl games. They get blown out. And plus, Notre Dame has a bunch of injuries on their defensive line. But I digress. So my son goes to Arizona State. Most people know this. He's turning 21 on January 3rd. He is not going to the game, but a bunch of his friends are going to be congregating on the 1st for the game. So, yeah, I'm kind of an Arizona State fan, but they're going to get blown out by Texas. They got a terrible draw. So Texas is going to blow them out, I suspect. And then we'll see. And then, yeah, a bunch of my friends are going down to the Rose Bowl to watch the Ducks, as you say, Endo. Go Ducks. I'd like to see the Ducks win it. I'm always a West Coast guy, whoever is from the West Coast. I'd like Arizona State, but I don't think that's realistic. But for them to go to 3 wins and basically have the death penalty thanks to our good friend Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. You play to cheat the game. But, yeah, the Ducks and Ohio State, probably the best game just because rematch of the game down in Eugene where, Will Howard slid and then didn't have enough time. He kind of pulled a Dak Prescott. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to probably be the best one. Georgia, Notre Dame's going to be pretty good. Penn State, Boise State is the game tomorrow night, right? Penn State probably blows them out. Are they playing? No, I was going to say they're playing on the blue turf. They're playing in the Fiesta Bowl, which I've covered many times and is a great time. But, yeah, they're playing in the Fiesta Bowl. So, anyway, yeah, I can't wait. I think this playoff thing is awesome. I think that the portal, they got to get that under control. But the 12-team playoff is brilliant. They're going to make some changes to it because the first games were all blowouts. So they'll make some changes. It's not going to be like automatic, bye and stuff if you win your conference, which it actually should be. But they didn't have great success in the first round, so they're going to change that all up, and they're going to probably make it so the teams like Alabama and all the great teams get in, and the Boise States and so forth aren't in. But we'll see. I hope I hope Boise State wins. I hope Arizona State wins. I hope Oregon wins. I hope all the West Coast teams win, but I doubt it. I think that Oregon will probably win, but that's going to be the best game. Ohio State loves Scatterbo. I don't know what Scatterbo is going to be in the pros. The way he runs, the balance, how tough he is. He went to Sac State. I love that kid, man. He's fun to watch. Boise State by upset. Look at you going through that. Very nice. Forks up. Yeah, forks up, man. I hope it works, but Texas, that's a bad draw, man. That's a good team. They're playing the wrong quarterback, though. I'd play Arch Manning. I don't think much of the other dude. Danny did have some bacon for breakfast. Very nice. Very nice. What else do we have? Jesus says, can we say that Ricky really had a great game when the defense left him wide open? Yeah, that's a good point. But you know what? After the season Ricky's had, I feel great for the kid. I talked to him 3 or 4 times this season, and he's a great kid, man. He's got a tremendous attitude. He was hurt in training camp. People forget that before he got shot. He just hasn't had a lot of practice time. And he hasn't had a lot of time with Brock. And we even saw early in the season, you've got to be with a guy constantly. Because Brock Purdy has thrown a ton with Brandon Ayuk. But then you go in off-season because Brandon held out not throwing. They didn't get on the same page even before Ayuk got hurt. I know a lot of people were like, oh, they were getting there. They were getting closer, but they weren't. And so, Pearsall's hardly thrown off the field with Brock Purdy. And what Brock Purdy's going to have to do in this offseason, since he didn't have Ayuk for the entire year, and, Juwan Jennings is fitting into a new role and everything, he's going to have to do what a lot of these quarterbacks do. And this is another reason why quarterbacks don't develop. He's going to have to take them down to San Diego or whatever, pay for everything when he gets his new contract. And they're going to have to throw just constantly throughout the offseason. He's got to get back on the same page with Brandon Ayuk. He's got to get on the same page with Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle goes to Nashville and goes to his place and does all this tight end stuff. They look like they're on the same page just fine. Thank you very much. But everybody else is going to have to go down with him. And they're going to have to get on the same page. That was a major part of this season. And it started with the Ayuk holdout and all that kind of stuff. You know the story. But that's where it started. What else do we got? Pearsall, solid season. Next season, he'll be better. I think he's going to be better. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Ashton Genty. Yeah, I'm excited to see him play. He'll probably go top 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Raiders take him. That was a bad move letting Josh Jacobs go. Valen says Arch Manning would look good in red and gold. Yeah, Arch Manning is really interesting because obviously we know the Mannings, they're pure drop back guys. Arch Manning's an athlete. Now, I don't know if he can, we got to see him a little bit more in terms of throwing the ball. Can he combine what the Mannings always have, which is that, the work ethic and the brilliance and all that kind of stuff and knowing the game like he knows it, and then combine that athleticism that we've seen from him in all these runs. I mean, can you imagine and Manning had the Manning stuff and then you add athleticism to it? If that's what Arch Manning is, give me that dude. We haven't seen enough of him, but possible. I mean, that's why I'm losing the name of the Texas quarterback. That's why he's not coming back next year. Like, lots of people have said he needs another year, and he's going to, teams have offered him, like Michigan State, like $3-4 million. It's like, are you kidding me? Before he, that he wouldn't go out, that he wouldn't come out, that he'd play another year. But Texas has told him, Steve Sarkisian's told him, like, dude, Arch Manning's playing next year, so you got to find another team because he's better. I'd play him right now. What, are you kidding me? All right. What else do we got? Yeah, JJ, you're right. Sadly, the Raiders are about bad moves. How bad is it? I mean, their defense has been bad forever. My son's a massive Raiders fan, and it's just like every year he's bitching and moaning. I'm like, dude, it is what it is. All right, man. Is that it? Yeah, that's right. Quinn Ewers. Yeah, that's the guy. Thanks, Jesus. I don't know why I just blanked on his name. He was at Ohio State, got a bunch of money there. Then he went to Texas. He's okay. I don't think he's great in any one area. And I think Arch Manning could be an absolute star, but Sarkisian's, being cool and everything about it. But if I was him in the playoffs, I'd play Arch Manning. I mean, I think he's better. But anyway, it is what it is. All right, man. Hey, this was really cool, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. I have heartburn now, damn it. Why? Because you ate bacon? Did you eat too much bacon? Was that my fault, AJ? Too much bacon today on Bacon Day? Uncle Leo, good to see you. Will we see Moody in a Niners uniform next season? I think we will, unfortunately. I think that Kyle likes him. They spent a third-round pick on him, unfortunately. And I think in the offseason they're going to try to rehab him mentally. They think, and Kyle has said this numerous times, the before the high ankle sprain versus the after high ankle sprain. I don't buy that excuse. You and I say this all the time. There are excuses and there are explanations. When you say that is he rehabbed from the high ankle sprain? Yes, he is. So that's an excuse that they're using on the high ankle sprain. He's lost his confidence, but I think they're going to try to keep him. Will they bring in some, a kicker next year? Maybe. It's possible. I didn't love it from the day that they did it. I think he's too up and down, especially when you had a guy, like Robbie Gould before, where it was like, okay, he had 53-yard range. I get it. You weren't going to do it at, 54. You weren't giving him a shot. But 53 and in, you would give Robbie a shot, and more times than not, and especially in the playoffs where he never missed. So that's what Kyle was used to. So I know this drives him crazy, and I've told you the story a million times. We're in the draft room, we're down there with KNBR, and I did the draft every single year, and Kyle and John would come in, and they came in, and they both kind of looked sheepish, and I was giving them grief about taking a kicker, and Kyle right away goes, I wanted a running back. And then John said, well, you got to take a kicker sometime. And they're defending it right away. They're very defensive. They didn't want to take one, but they had to. They felt like they had to. So anyway, that was the deal. Kilo 03 says, I think Arch is a bust in the NFL. We haven't seen him play enough. I mean, I think he's athletic. I don't know if he has the Manning way there, but he is athletic. So I don't know if he has any of the rest of it, but we'll see. I mean, he's going to be the starter next year for Texas, so we shall see. But people seem to like that guy. Pete Alonso, Kilo 03 going with some Giants. We need Pete Alonso ASAP. The only thing I said today on the show, and I said in a promo that I've got running, is are the Giants really going to pay Willie Adames $182 million and then turn around and pay Pete Alonso $150 or $200 million? Now, I would. It's not my money, because then you fix first base, you trade Lamont Wade Jr. for something, and then I've heard Bryce Eldridge can play the outfield. He's supposed to be really athletic. He's 6'7". I mean, Aaron Judge plays the outfield at 6'7". Right field is tough in this ballpark, obviously, but could Eldridge play right field and Alonso play first base? Well, then you're solved, because Fitzgerald's playing second, Adames is playing short, Chapman's playing third, Bailey's catching, Ramos is probably in left, Jung-Hoo Lee's in center, Eldridge in a year or two is going to be in right, and Pete Alonso's at first. Now you have an offense. Now Bailey can be a defense first catcher, but they also need a number 2 starter. I'm shocked that they haven't talked to Jack Flaherty. He's the best and only free agent pitcher left. Or are you trading for Luis Castillo? Or I have all that whole thing. We did that today too. So if you want to get into baseball, we can do that. We can do whatever you want. What else do we got? Yep, more offensive line talk. Yeah, they need to do that next year, the Niners. All right, I think we have covered about everything and anything. What do we got, about 10, 15? We've almost been going 2 hours. Hey, we needed it. Everybody needed it. Everybody needed to get their yah-yahs out and just say, look at this team. Terrible. 40-34, and the Warriors lost big tonight as well. We'll be back tomorrow. But first of all, before I say that, thank you. We just threw this together at the last minute and decided to do a Niners post-game show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, because I absolutely did. Oh, what about Roki Sasaki is who you're asking about. Makino. Roki Sasaki, I talked about this morning a little bit. It seems to me, now his agent Joel Wolf, and we'll talk about this tomorrow at 8 a.m., but his agent Joel Wolf came out and said, doesn't matter that the team doesn't have Japanese players, doesn't have to be a big market, doesn't have to be a West Coast market. By the way, he's doing these meetings. This was the most interesting part. Sasaki's doing these meetings, and he doesn't want any current players in the meeting. He just wants a manager and the front office. Doesn't want to be wooed by players. Joe Wolf, the agent, came out and said that, because a lot of times, remember, like, players are coming in and trying to woo the guy. Like the Warriors, they brought everybody to woo Durant. Sasaki's a different dude. And so everybody's saying the Dodgers and the Padres, that's all you ever hear. Dodgers, more than 50-50, the Dodgers are going to get him on the Padres. This dude's a different dude. Like when Ohtani came over, the Angels, nobody thought the Angels. And so he's in a similar situation. In 2 years, if he would have waited 2 years, he could have got like $200 million. He's just going to get international money. So it's just going to come down to anybody can pay him generally the same, a little bit more, whatever. But he's got endorsement deals and all this, but he's a different character. So, look, maybe he will go to the Dodgers, and all the insiders are right. But remember, all these guys who supposedly know everything, like the Jeff Passons of the world and John Heymans, and Bob Nightingale doesn't. He's wrong all the time. But all these guys that are supposed to know, and women who are supposed to know what's going on, who had Corbin Burns to the Diamondbacks? How about nobody? And nobody said, hey, you know what? He just had his wife just had twins, and they live in Scottsdale, and maybe that. Nobody said, like, hey, maybe he wants to stay home. That all of a sudden was like, oh, it's going to be the Blue Jays, or it's going to be the Giants, or maybe it's going to be Baltimore. All of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, the Diamondbacks, because he's from Scottsdale, and his wife just had twins, and they want to stay home. And it was like, I didn't hear anybody say that. So Sasaki's kind of a wild card. Now, like I said, maybe it'll be Dodgers, maybe it'll be Padres, like everybody's predicting. Some people are saying that it's not going to be the Mets and Yankees. Maybe it will. But it's a free-for-all for everybody. I mean, the Mariners have been talked about. I don't know that the Giants aren't in it. So, yeah, Sasaki would, just to go back to you on that one, Sasaki, if they got him, then Sasaki's your number 2. Now Ray's your number 3. I can live with that, but they need a number 2. So maybe they are waiting. Maybe the fact that they haven't signed Flaherty, or nobody has, or any of these other guys, and that's what's going to be difficult is once Sasaki makes a choice, and I guess that's going to be between January 15th and 20th is what they're saying now. Once he makes a decision, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, my God, we got to get, whoever doesn't get him, it's like we got to get Flaherty, or we got to get this guy, or we got to get that guy. If they get Adames and Sasaki's not going to be money, and they got Pete Alonso, now we're cooking with gas. But until that day, now we're all going, okay, Adames cool, but, and I'm not saying, like everybody was saying this morning, like, oh, we're going to rip him like we did Farhan. Come on. You're not going to rip Buster Posey. It's the first off season. He doesn't deserve that, I don't think. Anyway. All right, man. Have a good night. Thank you very much. Man, it was really cool to see a lot of new people, and plus our regulars. Tony was here. Daryl, Jacob, Macanino was here. Daryl was here. Good to see you. 2-3, good to see you. Killa was in here tonight. Ton of great people. AJ was back. Thank you so much. Frisco native 415. Sorry if I didn't get to everybody. Jesus had a great conversation tonight, man. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Please come back at 8 a.m. If you can't be here at 8 a.m., remember, obviously we archive all the shows, so you can do that. Please subscribe to John Lund at John Lund Unleashed Pod. We got a podcast as well that you can get, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your favorite podcast, all that kind of stuff. Tell all your friends and enemies, like I always tell you, and have a tremendous night. Niners lose it 40-34. Warriors lose as well. We will be back at 8 a.m., 8:01, 8:02, 8:03. Something in that range tomorrow. If you can't be here, make sure you subscribe. I throw out a bunch of stuff and shorts and promos and stuff all through the day, so make sure you do that as well. And tomorrow night, so in addition to the show, 8 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, sharp on this very channel, John Lund Unleashed, I will be with Larry Krueger. We moved our Monday nighter because I wanted to do a postgame tonight, so did he. So we moved our Monday nighter to Tuesday night, so I'll be with the Krug Show tomorrow night. Hopefully I answered all the questions. If you have any questions and I didn't get to it, just hit me up right there, right afterwards, or at John Lund Radio on Twitter mostly, but you can hit me up on any of the social medias. Have a great night. Talk to you in the morning.